Herrick if he will lead us in the invocation, and Councilman Bellson if he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear, kind and gracious Father in heaven, as we humbly bow our heads and come before you at the beginning of this city council meeting, Father, we give gratitude and thanks for those many blessings that thou hast poured down upon us. So grateful for this great country that we live in, for the opportunities and freedoms that we enjoy, and peace and safety that is ours. Father, we're grateful for this great community that we're a part of, and the many friends and neighbors that we are able to associate with, and the quality of life we enjoy here. We're grateful for all the many blessings thou provides us with. This time, Father, we seek for thy blessings to be with us here this night, that as we contemplate, discuss, make decisions concerning our great community, that we be guided and directed, that we might make wise decisions and conscientious decisions that are the best benefit of the community as a whole. We would also seek special blessings at this time upon those great men and women who serve, protect, and provide those freedoms and safeties that we enjoy, both locally and abroad, that they would be watched over and blessed and provided those special protections that thou knowest that they stand in need of. We pray also for their families, that they would be blessed with those special blessings and needs that they may have. We pray for the members of our community that are in need of special blessings, that they too would receive those blessings and those needs would be made known to the members of each of us in the community. We might be able to reach out to help and to strengthen one another. We again give thanks for all that provided us with, and seek for these blessings at this time. And do it in the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. I need to excuse our city manager, Roger Carter. He's out of town at ICMA. It's for City Managers Association meeting. He will be with us. He is joining us via TV, so streaming or whatever that technology is. And it looks like we want to welcome some scout troops. 2, 3 of you, or just one troop? One troop. What troop is it?
It's Washington, young man, Washington Field.
Great. Welcome. We appreciate you being here. I would now entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So made. Second.
Motion and a second.
Bellison, aye.
Granger, aye.
Clough, aye. Ward, aye.
Item 2, announcements. The only one that I know of is on Monday, the 28th. We're having our spooktacular up at the community center from 5 to 8. So we invite all of you that have children that would like to go up, and all of you that think they're children can go ahead and go up too. So you're welcome to come. Any others? And I just found out the Pineview girls cross country just took state.
Oh, wow.
So they want Chief to light his sirens up when they get into town. All right, item 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Anything to declare at this time? Item 4, consent agenda. To approve the minutes from the city council meetings of 10/8/19 and 10/9/19. I'll entertain that motion.
Mayor, I move approval of the minutes of 10/8 and 10/9 of 2019.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Ward, aye. Clough, aye.
Granger, aye.
Bellison, aye.
All right, thank you. Those are approved. Item 5, proclamation. Proclamation and effort to increase awareness, declaring October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Do you have a representative from the Dove Center here? Do you have a resolution for me to read? Well, that's really technical.
There is one in the packet, Mayor.
All right, then I'm going to read this proclamation. Whereas it is a basic human right to live a life free from violence and abuse, and whereas domestic violence is a serious problem that occurs in all cultures and communities and does not discriminate by age, gender, social class, ethnicity, religious affiliation, or sexual orientation as, whereas 1 in 3 women and 1 in 7 men in Utah will experience intimate partner violence in their lifetime, and 80 Utah children will witness the murder or attempted murder of their mother every year. And whereas domestic violence-related homicides account for over 40% of all homicides in Utah, and whereas awareness and intentional cooperation are required to find solutions to abuse and intimate partner violence, and October is the National Month of Domestic Violence Awareness. And whereas it is the role of local government to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. Now, therefore, I, Kenneth Nielsen, Mayor of Washington City, Utah, in partnership with the Dove Center, a community resource for victims, do hereby proclaim October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Washington, and invite all residents to learn more about how they can help, because domestic violence affects us all. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of Washington City this 23rd day of October 2019. Thank you, and thank you to the Dove Center for helping us participate in that. Item 6, preliminary plat. Consideration to approve the preliminary plat for Crimson Park Townhomes and Subdivision located approximately east of Medallion Drive and south of Treasure Valley Road. Applicant Development Solutions Group, Steve Kamlowski. Forget that. Do not memorize that code.
I can think of 7,022 reasons why I would never remember that.
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, the applicant is requesting approval of the preliminary plat for the Crimson Park subdivision. The applicant is proposing 112 lots and the area coverage is 13.57 acres. The zoning at this particular location is the planned unit development, multifamily residential. The surrounding zoning is R3 and C1 to the north, R18 to the west, agricultural 20 acre to the south and east. This preliminary plat approval is request and following up with the recently approved PUD-R zoning of the parcel. The proposed subdivision conforms to that approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances at this location. Staff reviewed the request and recommended approval with conditions onto the Planning Commission. Planning Commission reviewed the request at their October 2nd, 2019 meeting in a public hearing. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plat for Crimson Park subdivision onto you, the City Council. Of course, that's based on the findings, subject to the conditions. All preliminary plats have 11 standard conditions, 1 through 11. I'd like to just make note of number 12, 13, and 14 that were added to this particular preliminary plat. Number 12, though outside of the subdivision boundary, the street labeled Hayfield Drive, which is the continuation of 4200 South, will be required to be in place between the far end east of Treasure Valley Road, which is up there in your top corner, all the way to Washington Fields Road before a final plat can be applied for. That was a condition that you, the city council, put on it at that PUD approval. Again, to let you know, we've been working, the city has, with the Wells Cardiff LC folks. In fact, Mike just gave me an update, and he met with Bryce here in the last day or two, and he's been working with him to hopefully we'll get that secured really soon, and have that piece. And the Hoops have already offered their piece to the north of that, and so we're hoping to have that all tied up in the near future. Item number 13, the subdivision shall conform to the standards of the approved PUD residential multifamily development zoning.
Can I ask someone that just real quick?
No, I'm not done yet. No, go ahead. I'm just teasing.
So before any final plats can be applied for.
Yeah, if they break it into phases, which they are going to, that was your limitation on that. So, sorry, I was just teasing with you, Councilman Bills.
No, you're fine.
It's a good season. You can smile, Drew. Keep it going.
Again, 13 just stated it has to apply with all the conditions of the PUD approved zoning. And then number 14, the Planning Commission added number 14 at their public hearing, the detention pond. We're discussing basically this one here in the middle by the recreation area. Is to be as much grass as possible and as design will allow. We understand sometimes the engineering may require a little bit, especially on the banks. But they have committed to be the whole bottom, the level area to be grass, and they're going to try to get as much up the sides as well. That's what that as design will allow means, to be used in this play area for the residents. So we're trying to get into an extra play area. And the Planning Commission was on that, and the applicant was willing to do that. And so that's why we put in there, they're going to try to have their engineer design the whole thing to be that way. But in case some of it can't be, we'll understand that too. So there are your conditions. There's your report, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council has on this
It looks like
subdivision.
there are 2 detention areas.
There is. These other ones are kind of too small in their design. They've kind of looked at that. And so they're focusing on the grass area. They actually have there's several of them in different places to help with the water. But the one the Planning Commission was focused on, because it is so close to the rec area, that they wanted that to make sure that was a grass base.
So we don't have any condition on the other 2?
No, they didn't put any on the others because of the location and their size.
What's the size of that second largest one?
23,000 feet, 23.5.
What can you do on 23.5?
Well, there's,
32.
I think there's 23,000 cubic feet of water that it will hold.
Yeah, okay.
So it's different than the square
Probably right
footage.
here.
Yeah, so I'm just, I don't think we have, I could try to figure it out for you, but
It'll hold 23.5 cubic feet of water, and the other one will hold 32.3 cubic feet of water.
Well,
So
this
not a
is
whole lot of difference.
So this is a little bit sizable enough that you'd think they might could do
Not a whole
something
lot of
with it.
difference.
yeah. But again, it's also in the entrance of the subdivision.
Not ideal for a player.
Maybe a little more worrisome about play area right there, but
Well, it could be at least a green space.
well, all of our landscape detention areas have to have landscaping around them. I mean, at least in the form of bushes and shrubs, et
Looks
cetera.
like rocks.
Well, a lot of them, that's how they work best, because the water seeps in well through that with what they have under the rocks. So,
So I appreciate that they're working with one area, but there's actually some space there they could work with. Looks like the size of a pickleball court to me.
I have a quick question for you. Of the 112 lots within these 12 acres, no, 13.57 acres, this is not maxing out the possible amount of homes that I think they built low on their density. Is that
they
correct?
were a little bit lower because it's a medium high, which means they could go up to 12 dwelling units per acre.
So,
If you give me a second, I can roughly give you. And it's, how many acres did we say again? 13?
13.57.
Yeah, so I'll just,
so 162.84.
It's 8.25 dwelling units per acre, and the zoning allows, or the general plan density allows for 12 at the maximum, between 7 and 12.
Wow.
So,
I appreciate it being a little bit more considerate to the densities around them. I really appreciate that. Obviously, more could have been proposed, and I think that's a lot of respect given to the existing residents, so it's very much appreciated.
It's nice to see all those public streets too.
yes.
Definitely.
Do they have, it looks like sidewalks?
Yes. Yeah, there should be a
Yeah, so there's-
street design.
Okay. Got it.
What is our future expansion area?
The future expansion is they're waiting to see what happens on that intersection. They kind of left that right now until all that gets worked out. We're trying to get that in before it goes, and so I think they're just going to wait and see, and then come back and probably amend the PUD and see what's available there. My gut feeling would tell you they'll probably be back in and maybe want to push a driveway and put 2 to 3 units in there at a future amendment of the PUD.
So, but are they thinking,
Park area.
are they thinking they're gonna put in commercial in there? Because this.
No,
this
they
does
won't do
actually sit
commercial.
on a section of commercial here, right?
No, the piece right directly to the east of it does. That's about where that boundary line is.
What consideration has been given to bike lanes?
I'm going to divert my time to Senator Shaw on the bike lane comment because sorry, Mike. Well, that's how they do it in the. Turn over
Give
to-
the Senate.
Is there any announcements to make, Mike, your future plans and intentions?
So interior residential roads, we don't do bike lanes. So they have to be over a 60-foot right of way for us to do bike lanes. That 4,200 is a 66, so it actually will include bike lanes on it.
Good.
4,200.
It's the extension of
Hayfield Road.
4,200.
Treasure Valley Road is showing 60 foot.
Yeah, but this Hayfield Drive.
Oh, Hayfield, okay, yeah, you're right, 66.
But I mean, we don't even have construction drawings yet, so it's premature on our end to dictate. But as per our active transportation plan, that's how we push these roadways in.
But that's
With
only,
bike lanes.
that's not gonna be fully built out in this plan, it's only gonna be partially built out until.
They're not, yeah, you're right. And so at that, we have to put in a bike lane on each side, but we would make sure when it's a full build out, we would restripe it for the bike lanes. We can't put a bike lane just on one side of the road. We have to do both sides.
Have you, I know that some places they actually do put a bike lane, but it's a double bike lane on one side.
To do a double bike lane on one side, then we have to have a protected bike path, which requires a lot more right of way.
Okay,
So you have the bike lanes and then you have a protection strip between them.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
So
Any other
you
questions?
were saying that none of the area that is incorporated in this was ever general plan zoned for commercial?
Sorry, these TVs are freaking me out a little bit. So it's like
There is some to the
they're trying to
east.
link in.
So I know, but directly within the boundaries of this development, this was all,
Yeah, because the commercial was done, I remember, because I remember doing the general plan amendment for the Hancock Gibbies, and it was their piece that they came in and asked for, to go to that commercial. So that's why my gut feeling is a remembrance that the commercial should have only been put on the Gibby Hancock piece, but we'll.
So I want to tell the applicant, I appreciate the fact that they've treated the elevation on the front and the back, because most townhome projects, they just do
Your planning commissioners asked and wanted that during the zone change.
Yeah.
And that's good.
It looks great.
Councilman Ward, that piece that sticks over is the piece that's going to be the roadway area that we're going to get from them in a dedication. I see what you're saying now, that little piece that kind of juts out on the left-hand top piece. That's the area we're trying to get for the roadway. I think that's the question you're asking right there, is that piece right there
That's
was,
the only little section. I thought it was a little bit further over, actually.
no, that's what we're trying to get for them to dedicate to us, is, where this meets up to that. And then as it punches through up to the hoops.
But then the pink would also be, that's general plan civic, right?
No, that's medium high density, this pink. There's two different pinks in there. One's, I'm not going to get into colors, but yeah. With their specific mauve and then the rose and but yeah, this one is the medium high.
Okay.
Fuchsia, that was the other. I appreciate that still small voice came piercing through. So.
Thank you, small boy.
And we are pretty much, I think we have maybe 1 or 2 parking spots extra, but I think we're basically just right at the parking there.
Yeah, we had them put in some visitor and just to help with this. And so we made sure they went through and we calculated that out and got those in.
Appreciate the pathways I can see going to the rec center from some of the areas. It's nice.
So is there any, so each of them, as I'm looking at that correctly, there's 2 parking spots in a driveway,
Yes.
and then how much is it?
There's
how many-
2 car garages and then
2
2 car driveways.
and what is the little section out on each?
It's probably a
driveway? Is it-
planter area, I'm thinking is what it is.
We're at
These little rectangles that are, yeah, I think they're just planter areas. The smaller, rectangles with the little thumb sticking off the top are just kind of planter areas in between.
So this is PUDR. I mean, I guess I'm a little bit curious as to why they went with PUD on the zoning for this. I mean, they're not really utilizing the PUD designation here with any kind of a creative.
Well,
Housing
you
mix.
wouldn't see elevations or designs or anything if it wasn't.
I,
part of the
I
community.
appreciate, seeing them. I just,
And they've got, 17, looks like 17 probably additional stalls for guests that you probably wouldn't have got otherwise too.
Then, well, the 2 options, just to help and kind of answer that, 2 options they would have had in this area would either the PUD multifamily or the R3 zone. And there's not a lot different in, how it's laid out. It's just one comes to you the way you'd like it, seeing all the elevations. The PUD, I mean, the R3 would have still been a conditional use permit. Probably would have been a little bit less of a product, maybe not. They probably would have proposed the same thing, but in this particular kind of a layout with medium high density, those are the options. We try to guide them toward the PUD, telling them it, because they would have,
I guess
the
my-
zoning, they would have had to come for an R3 and you would
my
have been a little
question
more
wasn't
hesitant.
necessarily why they went that way. I mean, I appreciate it. I think it's preferred. I do like a little bit of housing diversity mix, but
If not in style, perhaps in color.
Yep.
We're up for approval.
Mayor, if we're done with discussion,
Are we done with discussion?
Councilman Belson has a motion to make.
Yeah, I was gonna make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat for Crimson Park Townhomes subdivision located approximately east of Medallion Drive and south of Treasure Valley Road.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second.
Ward nay.
I find that within the condition 12 and 13 addressing the public right of way in this before anything can happen, I think is respectful to the needs, the demands of that area. Obviously, we need to consider the traffic, and I really would like to see and ensure that staff verifies that the roadway goes through Clough High.
Granger, aye.
Bellis and I.
Turek, aye.
All right, that's approved 4-1. Move on to item 7A, public hearing. Public hearing for consideration of granting a donation to the 5-County Association of Governments Senior Corps programs for the Senior Companion and Foster Grandparent programs. Applicant Program Coordinator Joanne Lyman.
Thank you.
Hello, Joanne.
Keep you busy with this.
Well, thanks for having me. I think most of you know a little bit about my program, so I'll just go over it briefly. I work for 5-County Association of Governments, and I am the coordinator for the Senior Companion and Foster Grandparent programs. So I have those two programs, which are for lower income seniors to actually earn a little extra money. So they my senior companions and foster grandparents earn $2.65 an hour, which doesn't count against their Social Security or any other benefits that they might be getting. We reimburse them for mileage, and we do a little meal reimbursement. If they work 4 hours a day, we give them $3 for a meal, which doesn't really make much of a meal. But all of our senior companions and foster grandparents work a minimum of 15 hours a week. Most of mine do an average of about 22 hours a week. So senior companions go to the homes of other seniors. They take them shopping, to doctor's appointments, to get their hair cut, any kind of essential errands. They can just go and provide companionship with them. They can provide respite for caregivers. And then foster grandparents go to the schools and help the kids with their reading. They have to work one-on-one with kids with special or exceptional needs. They can't do the bulletin boards or make copies or things like that. They have to work one-on-one with the children. And then up there in the red, you can see where Washington City has 4 senior companions serving in your city. And then kind of they've worked 1,443 hours, looks like this year, and have traveled 4,700 miles. So they provide a significant amount of transportation to their clients. So foster grandparents, you just have one right now. We had another one, and she's left the program just recently. So we need to get a couple more here. So our foster grandparent works in the Washington Elementary School. And let's see. Do you have any questions? It's pretty fast. But
Pretty neat program.
they're fun programs. They're really great for the volunteers, and they're really great for the people they serve. And it doesn't cost the clients anything. It's a free service.
I've seen a program like this that's very similar working within elementary schools recently, and it is amazing how much that improves the child's experience in improving literacy. So I really appreciate that aspect within our education system, seeing it at work. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And I really like the idea of the seniors serving at the schools. I think it's a good tie there. And just a note, our foster grandparents aren't allowed to do any kind of disciplining. They're just there to be the grandma or the grandpa. You know how it is. You send them to the mom or the dad for punishment. So they send them to the teacher. So it's a constant upbeat atmosphere for the child. It's a really good situation there for them.
So you listed out 20 people in Washington that are volunteering, essentially volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
How many total?
So I have another 20 in Cedar City, and I have 2 in Beaver.
None in St. George Hurricane.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So Washington County, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have about 42 right now total. So I'm only funded for so many, or else I could just be huge. But I'm only funded for so much, and I have to, for my grant, I have to show community support. So that's why I'm here. I go to the different cities where I have volunteers and ask for a little donation. So I have to.
It'd be enjoyable sometime to hear comments from those people who receive the services.
You know, I was thinking that, and I was thinking next year I need to up my game a little bit. And I was thinking maybe I'd bring a volunteer along with me, back just on the way down. I was just,
Yeah, even a
thinking that.
comment sheet, but it would be fun for
Yeah,
us to make
that would be
connection.
really
But what you do
good.
for what we need to donate just seems so valuable to those people that are receiving those services. So thank you.
yes, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Okay, it's a public hearing. Any of you out there that,
Mayor, you may make people aware of basically what's being asked for here, that there is
What?
a donation of $500 that basically is being asked for. That's what the public hearing's about.
very well stated. Any questions or comments from you folks? You're welcome to come up. I see a double thumbs up out there.
Seeing none, Mayor, I'll make the
I see a
motion.
thumbs up.
I'll make the motion. We close our public hearing.
Second,
Motion and a second to close the public hearing.
Turek, aye.
Ellis and I.
Granger, aye.
Clough, aye. Ward, aye.
Thank you. And we'll move on to item B, consideration to approve the donation to the 5-county senior court program.
Mayor, I move that we approve the donation of $500 to the senior program.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Ward, aye. Clough, aye.
Ellis,
Granger, aye.
Granger, aye.
Turek, aye.
All right, that's approved. Thanks, Joanne. Good to see you again. Next year, ask for 1,000. Item C, public hearing for consideration to approve an amendment to the city code, Title 9, zoning and regulations, Chapter 10, subdivision regulations. Applicant, Washington City.
Mayor, I feel like if we don't make this more interesting, we're going to lose some more scouts.
Yeah, probably.
I object.
That's right. That's right, Josh. Josh, you might have to sing him a song or something.
I don't know. I think Drew announced that one of our city workers might be a senator soon. That was pretty exciting for me. I was excited.
I'm not
Thank
gonna
you,
comment on
council.
that.
Washington City is wishing to amend the city code and revising Title 10 subdivision regulations. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their September 18th, 2019 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the proposed new amended subdivision regulations for Washington City onto you, the City Council. After staff and Planning Commission review and discussion, the following ordinance change is being proposed. Now, just to give you a brief thing, we've been looking at upgrading or updating our subdivision regulations. I don't think they've been changed for quite some time, and if you read through the old one, it became apparent within the first couple of sections. It's like, well, that sounds kind of old and a little bit archaic and out of date, and it was. And so for the last couple of years, we've been slowly looking at just tweaking this to what we do today. That was the whole premise behind this. And so just to let you know, not much ended up changing. We went through the general provisions section, the chapter 1, very minor changes, just to a few definitions, just they were more updated ones we found. Enforcement and permits changed briefly, slightly, of who is going to be enforcing and how the permits are done. The big change came in chapter number 3, which is the plats. And so I can dive in there, but it's kind of boring. But basically, we updated the checklist, how we actually do our subdivision process. Because again, what was in the old subdivision compared to what we were doing that worked so well, they really didn't line up. We wanted to make sure that they lined up as they should. And so we went through and kind of updated that chapter 3, put new checklist on the preliminary plats, a new checklist for the final plats, for the developers and the engineers to follow, to have all the information that we required over the last couple of years. Councilman Belliston.
I'm not seeing, like, it's not highlighted. I'm not seeing the, bubble that says, hey, this is where we're changing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do it that way. I just put your new ordinance in for you. If you want that, but over your next couple of weeks, I
Yeah,
can,
if you could do that tomorrow and then ship it to us and say, hey. this is
tomorrow,
what's-
hey, it's not going to happen tomorrow because that's,
I do agree with Councilman Belson, the
In the
concept.
next day, in the next few days.
Before
if you could
12
do that,
tonight,
just
I think
highlight
we
what's
fine
been
too.
changed.
No, in all
But I'll go through and
sincerity.
read the whole thing.
In all sincerity,
yeah,
it would
that's
be
why I'm
very
just
much
trying, like I say,
appreciated.
That would
You
be
know,
useful.
yeah.
Time consuming.
Well, me too. I was with many of these
Well, I'm going to
conversations.
bubble whole chapter 3 for you. Just, can read that. And what I'll maybe do is just send you copies of what the 3 looked like. And the new might be the faster way to, well, that's not even written down anywhere. That's the problem. We don't have the old one other than in our codified books. And I don't think we can go to Sturgeon codifiers and bubble around their items. So what I'm probably going to have to do is take the copies as they are now, scan them, and then you can mirror up chapter 3, the 2 different 3s. Because they did change a bit just to bring it up to date. And might be the easiest way for you.
We've done this before, though, when we did like changes with our water agreements and everything. Very long, boring things that I would love to read with the contrast of what the change is.
And I have no problem not trying to keep you from anything like that. It was just that it was old and didn't make sense. So you'll see it
Makes
as
a
you
lot
read
easier
it.
to see the strikeout. And then you
Helps
can-
us understand.
It just helps
Yeah.
us to peruse through it rather than going through and say, okay.
Yeah,
this
like I
changed,
say,
did that not change, what's
Yeah,
changed?
I'm going to need a few more days because I'm going to have to probably, what I'm going to do is strike out in the old one. And I'm
Either
just
that
going to
or
have to
we could
read.
even go back to our codifieds and look at it.
Like I say, if I don't mind bringing it up and copying that section and just send you, especially this one, changed a bit. I can tell you right now in chapter 2 on enforcement and permits, this enforcement officials is all that changed in this one. It used to say the building official for some reason was the enforcement official over subdivisions, which I didn't really ever understand why they did that back then. The building officials over the building of homes, et cetera, and the building permit. And so this one, basically the change is we pulled out the public works director or his or her assigned designee and the community development director or his or her assigned designee was what changed in this chapter. So that one's simple. I can show you that one, but that's really all that happened in chapter 2. And again, I'll be more than glad to send you the old chapter 3. And you can kind of read and see the upgraded that we did, and it's a whole lot easier to follow and
I had the
shows them the
same
process.
question as Councilman Belliston. I really appreciate when we have that, the strike through on there to see the changes, especially in codes there. I think sometimes it's really beneficial to see how it was and what it is now right in line. Elsewise, you tend to get, well, I think your focus tends to be scattered throughout some of the other text. So going forward, that would be my preference for any time we have a code change.
And like I say, I'd be more than glad to do that on you, just moving forward so we can,
The codifiers, if you do go into Sterling Codifier, you can directly pull the text right out of that, and you could drop that back into a.
yeah, I know you can make copies and so you can print and everything, but again, I'll see if I can't pull it and then put it into a system where I can bubble it.
Yeah, you could.
So,
No, on your rock walls, it would be nice.
but
to-
that's where we're going to get. I mean, we'll move to the rock walls here in a second. I want to keep in line here. Chapter 4 really didn't change at all. This was good language. We didn't really touch this one. Again, you can see that we really only had 2 sections in it. It's pretty simple. Acceptance and dedication of streets, we pretty much kept the same. That was in. There was no need to change it. Chapter 5, we really didn't touch this one because this is the one that gets into the escrow agreements, and I had Public Works look this over real well, and they liked all the options, and everything stayed status quo right here in Chapter 5. Except for the back. Well, let's see. Yeah, I will make a minor adjustment to that. It was mostly all the bonding, et cetera, all that stayed the same. Then when we get into the subdivision grading, we talked about retaining walls. We didn't really change that at all, to my understanding. The big change is here. We added Section 9 on Chapter 5, rockery walls. This has been the big thing in all of our area down here. And a lot of cities adopted the rockery wall. I think we adopted a policy at one time, but we decided to put it in the subdivision ordinance. This rockery wall language basically is near mirror image to St. George's and I think Santa Clara's rock wall. They adopted the same thing St. George did. They've all kind of came with the way they're built, and we're all using the same contractors, et cetera. Our Public Works Department looked this over real well, liked the way it was worded, and so we are throwing that in there. So you won't have anything to mirror this if this is all brand new
So my
stuff.
comment was going to be is that I know that we use in these walls sandstone. And I know over time that sandstone starts to dissolve.
Well, that
Yeah.
used to be why you had a lot of failure walls. Was now the geotechs have to make sure. Are you kidding me? That's the problem about having a new iPad. My old one didn't do that. I didn't know that this one sucked onto my phone. I apologize. Never had that. This new technology is mind blowing. They actually, all the geotechs actually are supposed to inspect. The engineer that does the design on it is supposed to inspect all the rocks, make sure they're not of a certain sandstone. That's my understanding on all of how they're all doing them now.
And the intention from previous conversations with the planning commission was to borrow from some local areas that have had these same issues, so that we could utilize some of the problems that they'd have and the solutions they had deployed in their language.
I don't see the language in here that's going to force us to distinguish between the rocks that are dissolving and the rocks that are more stable.
Usually that's something they call it within the hardness of the rocks.
I have a
from
backyard that I'm willing to use as a sample.
Well, I can take you to a good 20 different places that would use a sample.
Well, it does,
Um,
the rock source shall be pre-approved by the geotechnical engineer is in
Yeah,
there.
but shall we say somewhere in there, we're just not going to use sandstone that dissolves as the water goes down over the bushes that are up above that wall. And
Well, here in number 5, this is again, what I'm just taking as I remember reading this, is that I don't know if this is strong enough, and if you don't feel it is, we can try to find something you feel is strong enough. But number 5 right here, it talks about rock selection. The rocks used in the rockery wall shall be of general cubical, tubular, or rectangle shape. I'm starting to sound like a California. Tubular.
Tabular.
Rounded rocks should not be used, and internal void spaces in the facing should be kept to a minimum. Prior to being placed, all rock shall be inspected and approved by the geotechnical engineer. The rock source shall be pre-approved by the geotechnical engineer. Rock shall be placed to decrease in size with increasing height. Rock shall be placed to bear on good flat surfaces. So it sounds like he has to inspect the source, and then then they need to be,
we
the
don't-
rock source shall be pre-approved.
Yeah, we don't have a standard here for that approval. I mean, I'm not seeing a standard here for what will tend to be approved. It says he has to inspect it, he's going to look at it, but what generally is he approving? And we're not saying, you know what, dissolvable sandstone isn't going to be approved. And I don't know if that's what we need to say, but I do think there's some stuff out there that we shouldn't be using in rock wall.
No, there's no doubt. No one's going to argue that point. And yeah, I guess I need to back up a little bit and tell you that they can't just go out and build one. They do have to get a permit for it. So they're going to they're going to go to a geotech engineer. He's going to write up a design. He's going to put that design, he's going to state what it all has to be, how it's built, all the compaction, all the geogrid, how this thing's built. He does the design. He also then,
Once
Hey,
he
my
signs
good.
it, his E&O insurance picks up on it too.
he stamps the design and turns in the inspection.
Yeah, the geotechnical engineer has to certify the wall once it's completed, and that's gonna, in the field of geotechnical engineering, they're gonna certify the hardness of the rock.
So are they
Sands-
certifying that this wall will
sands-
not dissolve?
Yes, because they have hardness criteria they have to do. Sandstone's hard. It's the mudstone that you're seeing looks like a sandstone, but the mudstone will dissolve. So, but that they will look at hardness of the material to build the wall with it, because they need to cover their own backs while they're doing this. And that's why we put most all of this on the geotechnical engineer
Okay.
to design it, certify it, inspect it all the way through the process, because we've had a lot of issues with rock walls.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so that whole section is all brand new and that's it. But I'll be more than glad. It sounds like you really want to look back over chapter 3 is, like I say, the biggest change.
Just
Go.
one point of change, I would think, back up in 10.5-8A. Number 1, we talk about retaining walls being installed, and then it says shall be approved by the building official. Does that need to be correct? I mean, before we took and said it, we designated who was going to be that, and it isn't the building official anymore. It's our public works director and our other people designated. So whether we need to even just take that out, because we said they're going to oversee the whole.
We may want to just put the city, because in some cases, the building department may, if someone's doing one on their property after the subdivision's built, it won't go through
It's just
the
that-
public
that
works
term there
anymore.
again. Before we had building official in, now we took it out saying we don't want building official in there, but yet we're still calling out the building official.
Now, did you say 10.5.8A?
Yep, number 1.
Number 1, retaining walls. Okay. And what we do is we just may say that all designs shall be approved by Washington City.
There you go, something there. I just,
Because there will be times that the public works will be seeing certain of these during the build out on subdivision. After it's done, the building inspectors will be seeing stuff done on the property.
correct. I was just saying, the first part of it, we did spell out that those 2 different entities or the designee would be overseeing this. Then we turn around and name the building official again back in it.
And you know what? I may do that. I'm just going to say public works designee and community developments or building departments designee is what I think I'll do.
However, I just.
Instead of it's just saying Washington City, because I don't want them to think they can go.
Then we left it back in.
Yeah, I don't want him to walk into Barry's department and he thinks, well, I'm Washington City. I guess or not put that burden on anybody else. So I'll spell that out. We just redline that one. Yeah.
Maybe we could just use city designated official, cover, then we don't worry about even designating department. City designated official.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one we originally adopted quite a few years ago when all of a sudden the rock walls were starting to fail all over the county. And so we brought in this subdivision grading one that kind of talked about it, but it just didn't have the same bite that now then other cities had this, and they went and adopted specifically a rockery wall. Because there are, subdivision grading and retaining walls, and then there's the rockery wall type retaining walls.
Coming
So
right back to Councilwoman Granger, if you look in 10.5.9D, 2D, it does say specifications shall be provided to clearly define acceptance criteria for rock materials. So it sounds like we need to,
So we need to have it, we need to tell them.
One thing, just with briefly looking over this, I was looking over the federal highways inspection list for the rockery inspection checklist. And I think it has some good things for us to verify in the hardness and how they check it. If we need something put in place before we approve it, I think it needs more discussion to where people can verify and validate the quality of the rock and its ability to be useful within construction purposes. I don't think it has what Councilman Granger is looking for. I'd like to second that concept.
Well, I think we say right in our ordinance that we're going to provide that.
Well, you're in design and construction?
I'm in 10.5-9,
Okay, 9, I'm sorry.
2, and then number D. Oh, right, just a minute. Oh, let's see, come on down. 10.5-9, 2. Where's your, come on, no, the other way.
Well, okay. But 2, well, it's got to be a letter first.
I don't have a,
Um,
on mine, it has
There is-
10.5-9 on this side and 10.5-10 on that side of your page.
Okay,
On 2A, it says
Come on down,
maximum.
keep coming down. Keep coming down.
got to be in
Okay,
here
right
somewhere.
there. Right there, D, specification shall be provided to clearly define acceptance criteria for rock materials.
I do.
That's fine. I just want to go back up here and find out what it's coming from, because it might. Analysis provision, the following analysis provisions shall apply. The maximum unit weight. Just the maximum coefficient of interaction between the rocks.
And forgive me, Drew, if I could be wrong. The geotechnical has some unique things, but it is a small level of check for the quality of the rock compared to the structural overall review of the rock. Should we include something structural and geotechnical, or simply just geotechnical review of the rock?
He designs the whole thing, to my understanding. Is that, so it's the,
Reading that now, Drew, all in context, that maybe we're asking the geotechnical.
he provides,
Exactly.
that's what this is saying. The analysis provisions is the following analysis provisions shall apply. So he's going to show all this in his design.
Show how it meets his criteria.
Right.
Correct.
And he'll give the specifications that clearly define how he accepted the rock put into his rockery wall.
Because most of what I'm reading, and I apologize, I'm not a professional in 25 seconds, but it seems that most of what's being checked off in any type of a rockery is not so much geotechnical as it is the structural. It has more of a value to the inspection. Geotechnical only covers about 5% of what's checked, and the rest is a lot of structural concerns to the quality of the rock, its hardness, everything else. I don't know if that needs to be included.
Well, most of them they're all in one engineering firm. I don't know if there's probably a few geotechs out there that stand alone, but most of them are part of your main engineering firms. And so they all work together on that design and put it in, and it comes with a stamp of how it's to be built. And then they turn in all the inspections that they approved.
Like 2A does talk about that the maximum unit weight of the rocks used in the design shall be 155 pounds per cubic foot. Why is that the maximum and not the minimum? I mean, we want the rocks to be heavier
I'm
than.
going to ask an engineer that. I'm not going to touch that one. Do you have, would you know why? Well, I didn't know. I mean,
I don't know that I want to get into the middle of
The
telling them
geotechs.
what kind of rocks they can use. That's what they
That's
do
their
for a
world.
living, let them certify it. Once they certify it, it goes, they stamp it, there's stamps on it, and they have
Yeah.
insurances in place too.
Oh, I'm
So
kind
they
of the
have
same way. If they wanted to use something that's decorative but is not able to handle moisture, if they put moisture protection in and engineer it correctly and it's fine and they know, I'm good with that.
It is until the squirrels come.
The squirrels? Oh, the swirls.
Squirrels.
Oh,
no,
squirrels.
the actual squirrel. We'll just put squirrels not allowed signs at the base of all of them. That'll take care of that.
Well, I think some of these excavators got sued on enough jobs that they know what rocks work and what rocks don't.
Well, when it collapses in my backyard, Green Springs is going to end up half of it in my house. Who built the rock wall then?
part of that discussion, except for the area around. Nothing greater.
See, and it's the reason that your wall, the way it is why we're throwing this in.
It's time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's time to do that.
It
Well, we
is.
didn't have any rock wall ordinance, and
This is
you
an
got
improvement.
contractors trying to build a 20-foot tall straight rock
Exactly.
slope that is a problem.
If, I guess one thing within this, since it's been brought up as a significant concern, though we're adapting this from another city, would that be possible to provide for us to validate what's being presented, or is that not available?
The ordinance, as I understand it from St. George, that this was adopted from was, there was a lot of people that was involved with putting this ordinance together,
Mhm.
including the geotech firms and the city and the council. So they worked on this for quite a while before they came up with.
So as a
What's
fair
yours?
question, how long has St. George been operating underneath this new ordinance?
It's a
Did they
decade.
have a decade?
Yeah, they were one of the first ones to adopt it flat out and put it in ordinance form for it. You know, we took a lot of that and, you know, what they were using and just applied it and had people go to that. But we felt it was necessary, throw it in while we're doing our subdivision ordinance, why not put it in now?
I appreciate the improvement.
So-
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, a lot of work.
A lot of them been following the standard. They just know that's what, well, if that's what, they just do what all the cities they think are expected. That's just how all the rock walls have been being built
So with all
lately.
this clarifying, this is not something that we as a council need to provide as standards. That will be produced through the geotechnical engineer at the time, therefore validated through you and us.
So about, how long would you say, Mike? 18 months ago, we sat down with the geotech and Brandon and I was there to sit down and try to come up with our own rock wall ordinance. In the end, it makes sense to just harvest what's already been worked on by other cities and do it. So I appreciate that it's finally here.
I'm good.
So like I say, I'll be more than glad before you go into your public hearing, Mayor, and I'll send you the old chapter 3. That's the one that has all the significance, you know, that we needed to change the most. Beginning, I looked at this 3 years ago and started thinking, I'm just going to overhaul this whole thing. I just didn't like. The more I got in looking and studying all kinds of other people's subdivision ordinances, I just came back and said, you know what, ours isn't too bad. We just need to fix these particular areas and just to keep it to where we didn't go way off into some new, you know, layout and everything, following someone else's really good design. I just felt it was important that we just beef up our chapter 3 in this, and because that's where all the meat and the nuts and bolts for this whole subdivision is based in, is the plating. So I'll be more than glad to get those
All right,
chapter
thank you.
3s out to
Any
you.
other additional questions for Drew?
Yeah, one other, just so in the process of code changing, is there any provision within the city for something like this to run through Jeff Starkey and have legal take a look at it?
You know, I can take a look at them. After you guys send kind of your comments through and before, and I think that we're still gonna come back, but it's not to the point where we're really kind of go to this is our ordinance we've had for an awfully long time. I mean, you see what the changes have been made through the years, but I certainly will go through.
And again, you,
Too much of them, sometimes it just takes too long. I just not too long in it because I don't like formatting and I don't like absolute specifics, but the bulk of what it is, what the intent is, we certainly discuss it.
well, Mr. Starkey sits through all of our planning commissions. Again, we had this on our planning commission agendas. In fact, a few of you were probably sat through them and I had to wake you up. But we've had this on several planning commission, just talking about the nuts and bolts of things. And I think at least 5 of their meetings or more, we've kind of talked this out, and Jeff's been at every single one of those meetings, et cetera. So,
Was he when we had to wake up?
well,
Oh, okay, then where are we?
Thank you, Drew. Again, this is a public hearing. Any of you out there that would like to offer a comment or have a question?
Cade Hoff. Just a quick comment. 10.3 section, it looks like the numbers are off and there needs to maybe be renumbered. But I just recently went through a single lot subdivision And it seemed like there was a lot of ambiguity around the single lot because it's a minor subdivision, but it wasn't really a minor subdivision. And I don't know if any of that's been clarified or updated. It just seemed like a lot of the requirements, they said, oh, that doesn't apply because you're a single lot versus a,
We never have a single lot.
well, yeah, a lot split, I guess. So I don't know if there needs to be a distinction between a lot split versus a minor subdivision or something along those lines. Because for me, it was a little bit unclear doing the split. They kept saying, oh, this doesn't apply because it's just a lot split versus a minor subdivision. So that was my only comment. I looked for some clarification.
Cumbersome to go through because
It wasn't clear
Wasn't
what
clear
was
what-
applied and what isn't applied. It was easier, yeah. Yeah, it was easier for me, but every list that they gave me was for the minor subdivision. And then they had to go through and say, oh, this doesn't apply, this doesn't apply, this doesn't apply, et cetera. So that just to,
So it's less of an ordinance issue and more of an application issue.
application process, we didn't have one just for that at that time.
do you now?
Updated our new application.
Yeah, but just, I don't know if that can be clarified at all in this or if it makes any sense to do so, but just wanted to share that. And then the numbering 410.3, I think you've got one other addition that was added in there between final plat and minor for documents. And so your top section doesn't match the other, but. So you've got 10.3 up at the top of the section where you've got all the headers. I think you actually go down to 10.3.8 now, and in between final plat and minor subdivision, you inserted a required docs, I think. Because I was trying to find 10.3.5 and it actually, you had to go to 10.3.6 to get to it. Yeah, see, that's a new one, 10.3.4. That I don't think is referenced in the top. So they're all numbered there correctly in the paragraphs, just not in your table of contents. But
so it's a table of contents that needs to be cleaned up.
correct,
Well, I see what, yeah, section label.
right.
Well, it is saying that there's a 10.3.7 that doesn't exist too.
Right, 10.3 things is a minor subdivision, whereas in
Yeah, because number 4 is,
Done.
document 10.3.5 is the final. And so, yeah.
10.3.6,
Need to clean
yeah.
up. That needs to be
we'll
cleaned
go
up.
back and get-
Because I was just looking for the minor subdivision, but anyway, just feedback from a
Somebody's
homeowner.
somebody's
Walk
walked
through
that
the
path.
process, yeah.
Thanks, Kate. Any other questions or any other comments?
So Drew, there's no 10.3.7 either.
Yes, probably fix that, I think go back and address the.
Index.
Yeah. Because I think that lot line, is taken care of in the definitions, I think we went through, and so we just had to drop it out. It's a lot easier to do that, it's a staff thing, you know, we just add in. So I'll go back and get those and bring them back. We'll dive in on them on chapter 3.
Good catch.
Any additional comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So
Excuse me.
moved.
Second,
Have a motion and a second.
Ward eye.
Clef eye.
Granger, aye.
Bellis and I.
Turek, aye.
All right. Drew, you'll send everybody the information and updates they're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll make a vote
We
on,
have a 3-week gap. because it's
Right.
Wednesday, so it won't just be 2 weeks from tonight. We have
3 weeks.
I'll get them out as soon as I can.
That'll be the 13th, right? Okay. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Kate, for that. Item 8, ordinances, consideration to approve an ordinance adopting the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Leisure Services Director, Barry Blake.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This has been a long process. It's been a great process. I think we started on this with Sunrise Engineering almost a year ago. did a lot of research and work, and it came to a public hearing, I think, almost 2 months ago, middle of August, a little over 2 months ago, middle of August. We've had quite a few workshop sessions also on this, and I want to thank the council again for that, because I think you understand all of this and know what's in this whole thing, and so I appreciate that. With that, the maximum allowable amount for this impact fee is $6,295. That is to sustain the level of service that we have right now. I know we've talked about different scenarios, different things, and certainly the area we live in, which we've been talking about in this whole process. I would like to recommend for the council an impact fee of $4,500. That's about $1,800 less than what the maximum amount is, and a lot less, same amount less than what the current level of service is. So that will drop our current level of service.
So last we talked, when we had the engineers, we had, we actually discussed phasing that part. We discussed, some different costing, and then it went back to the engineers. We haven't seen that come back to us.
Well, all that.
I'm not arguing with,
Yeah.
What are the amounts be, but we wanted to tie it back to the different projects and what they were and the amounts tied to them. We just haven't seen that back.
We're happy to come back with adjusted information. What we would plan to do, and we recognize the direction received last time to break those into phases, with that second phase of the sports complex being bumped out of the horizon. What would happen though is another park would come in of a different type, the same acreage, to fill out the amount of acreage that needs to be developed in the 10-year planning horizon. So generally the numbers overall won't change. Before we finalize the master plan, we'll make those adjustments in there and break that out and finalize that table that goes in there.
So how do we vote on an unfinalized master plan because we're still having that conversation?
Yeah, I think what he's saying is your acreage coming back in would be to do what you're talking of doing, of staying whole, you take it from here and put it up to here, it still stays at your 60.
The acreage wouldn't change. We just have to phase it differently.
But I think what we're trying to do is save money by reducing the amount that we're doing, not fill in when we create a gap.
Well, and we would do that. We're already dropping the level of service.
Yeah, you're dropping down by what they're recommending, and personally, I think it's important to leave them in the master plan, because if something like that comes forward, if it's not in the master plan, you cannot fund it.
Correct.
And so it's good to leave it in the plan, even though you may think it's fallen to your back end of your 10 years, if even getting there. But at least you leave it in the plan to where if all of a sudden there is a need for a ball complex,
We have that ready
something
to
happens,
go.
it's there, so it can be funded.
Councilman-
Well, but he just said that we'd phase the ball complex, which that's going to change our amounts because we can't.
Well, that was the
push part
discussion that we
of it
had,
out.
as possibly saying, look, we need to, instead of building a sports complex, let's just build one field
One
or two
phase.
fields.
Well, Councilman Turek, last time, one of the things I appreciated in the discussion was setting us up. Are we doing what we feel like we need for our citizens in our community? Because there was a big concern of what this new change will be, how it compares to our neighboring communities is not minor. We already are leading in the investment of fields and recreation, and this would be significantly larger, not minor. I feel like I don't have enough information with the revised concepts that we had to say which one it is that we're moving forward on. I agree with keeping the ideas in the master plan, but I don't feel like I was giving a spectrum of choices to what if we did this, what's that final amount? If we did this, what's that final amount? I need to see those options broken down before I can vote for it. I don't feel comfortable voting the maximum.
Yeah, I don't want to hold the process up any longer. My feeling was when we left that meeting,
We were going to have.
that we were going to have another conversation after the direction we got from the engineers. We haven't had that.
We got straight to this.
So obviously I want to try and get, there's a capital facilities plan, we ought to adopt it and move on. I just didn't feel like there was a resolution in that.
Part of the discussion was, should we be building large complexes or smaller complexes out into the community?
And didn't
I
see
don't
that
know
come back.
I don't know that that's been discussed, but we talked about that as a something to be discussed.
I feel as much as this is an important facet of what we do in our community and we'd like to move it forward, I still feel like there is much that needs to be developed before we can, as a council, say, okay, we feel confident going forward. This is what our community needs. There was a lot that I felt was left unpresented and not really discussed properly. And I feel like there's more to be done before we can vote on this. That's my feeling on it.
Would you like us to come back to the next work session with a table?
The 12th and 13th to come back
No,
and just have the conversation. We at least touch on those question areas that we had.
Yeah. Be happy.
You know, one thing may be important to bring to that is the cost of, maybe
It's the
the cost
spectrum.
of a ball field.
Correct.
And so then we can say, okay, this is what one costs us.
I feel like
So
they
if we
had the
decide to go
costs.
two, it kind of does this with this.
This is one thing that I feel like was present. There were some costs presented. That was fine, okay? But I feel like we were given basically the idea of, well, if we're going to do this, this is what it's going to be. And this, if we're going to do this, what's it's going to be. I feel like we gave enough direction last time to give us some package ideas of what we'd like to do. I'm not in favor of removing them from the master plan, but knowing what we're going to do in our priority and how far this 10-year horizon is going to take us if we do this or if we do that. I felt like that information was not presented to us because I don't feel jumping straight to the maximum really is responsible at this point.
Yeah, they're not, I think.
Well, we're not jumping to the maximum. We're $1,800 below the
No, and
maximum.
I get it.
Yeah.
And I'm not arguing, and I'm not saying that.
And the
recommendation's wrong.
maximum is our current level of service. That's
Well,
to
you know, and
maintain
our
that.
current level of service is amazing, but there's that moment where we ask, is it sustainable?
Well, and that's why that's one reason.
And you know, and I appreciate that, but it is enough where it is a beautiful thing. It is a wonderful standard to have in the community, but it is also that thing to really, really look at and say, is this really the responsible way for us to go?
And I agree, but that's something I think that the council really needs to give me direction on if that's the case. And then we will know. I mean,
I agree.
if you tell me, you know, this is what we want, this level of service we want, and we gave you that information of what those level of services are,
Yeah, but
kind of
you
like a
gave
menu,
us-
that would help us a lot, and that would help me out a lot.
I kind of anticipated that you guys would be coming back at a workshop and a council.
Correct.
Like we did last time. And just say, okay, here's what you guys asked us. Here's what, here's how the table modified. Here's what those costs are, and then vote on it forward. Because
Correct.
is it really much in the capital facilities plan, much more than a couple of tables?
Not really, but what we'd probably need to do, Councilman, is
It'd have to be adjusted.
bring the spreadsheet and break some of those options out.
I got to tell you, the spreadsheet was incredibly helpful last time.
It helped me a lot.
The one that we base all the calculations on is big, lots
Well,
of
and-
tabs in it. So,
and-
but we need to probably boil that down and get it to where, as a council, you can see what the options are, including break out the sports complex, phase one, phase two, and maybe even more than that. Give you an idea of where those might fall out. The thing that we're missing to finalize it is what parks do you want to show in it?
Yeah, and I think that was the discussion the council was having, especially kind of when we got hung up on the sports complex and saying, well, we don't need a full-blown sports complex maybe in this, let's look at one or two fields. So we start to phase it, and I think that's what the council's looking for, to come back and say, where was that dollar figure? Because I love the spreadsheet, because you could plug it in and say, okay, if we do this, here's where we lie.
Yeah, you had that.
And if we
Yeah.
do this, here's what you can build. And we look at trail service. I mean, I'm leaning more towards looking at trail service, especially in certain areas that get us into the reserves and those places that become parks in and of themselves, different than grass fields. But if we can build trails and trail heads that get us into those, in reality, they become parks in their own little way. And so, to me, I'm more inclined to look and say, okay, we know what parks we've got. We want to look at some ball fields. But I'm looking more at the trail side of things and say, okay, what trails can I build for, what's a trail going to cost?
So,
Yeah.
so part of the discussion that needs to take place is really philosophical. And I think that's where the council needs to have that dialogue. What is our philosophy? Big complexes, diffuse complexes, small complexes, more support with the trails. There just is a discussion that needs to happen.
Sure.
So,
One of the
I don't think
challenges,
it's much more than just a follow-up workshop to you.
no, I think that might do it.
We certainly want you to continue. Your understanding of
Yeah.
the parks and trails is as good as any council that I've ever worked with. Honestly. But it's because you put the effort. Well,
Yeah.
you put the effort into it, and it's great. We'll do that. We'll bring a spreadsheet back. Happy to do it. One thing that I had thought of, Councilman Belston, as well, is you had some questions on pricing last time, how we came to those numbers. Be happy to host you over at the office. We can't do it as a group, obviously, because of the open meeting laws, but if you're
Mhm.
interested, we can get.
Sit down in there.
Look through that spreadsheet. I love it. Okay. Do you want me to email you or set it up? Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, you got it.
And then before we close, just to give you an update, just give you a report. So we did open the Shooting Star Park 2 weeks ago, and it's a beautiful park and really services that area well. It was
You haven't
needed.
gone seen it, go see it. It's really
We will
nice.
open the Canyon Park. We had a work session on this, not a work session, but a work project, community project that was very well attended. We got a lot accomplished, and a lot of people from the community came out, and that's going to be a beautiful park. Everybody that was there was so excited about it, and that will open
22nd?
23rd, I think Saturday the 23rd, is that correct? Of November?
Probably would be
That is
there. Do it on
23rd?
Saturday, right?
Yeah, it's a Saturday. 22nd, 20, whatever that falls on, we've got that scheduled to open that park. I know Councilman Turek talked about some trails. We're in the process, matter of fact, I've got the application signed today by the mayor that's been prepared for Sitla for the Mill Creek Trailhead. And we're going to get that turned in and pay the fee, and hopefully they'll do that, and we'll get on that trailhead that will open up above town. So there's a lot of good, exciting things happening, and appreciate your support.
Just need a little money to help you.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Thank you very much. So it sounds like to me, 9 and
Yeah,
8
Mayor,
and 9
with the
will,
discussion, let me make a motion. We
Okay.
table item 8A, consideration to approve our ordinance adopting our Parks and Recreation Master Service
Second?
plan.
And 9A.
and 9A. Might as well move to 9A
We
also.
want to do both of them in one motion.
All right, we'll do them as
So
separate
we'll just
motions.
table this to our next
Workshop?
workshop and council meeting.
Do
Second.
we want to spell out exactly what we're expecting
Oh,
of the
With the intent
estimate? I know we've
of,
talked about it, but
how would you say that?
it's Councilman Turek's motion. I just was
Yeah,
asking.
I
if he-
mean, to me, we're just table, my motion is to table. So there'll be some more discussion had and ready to go.
If I can add to that, Councilman Turek, I understand tabling it, but it would be with the intent of seeing a varied level of, it's not so much level of service, but the costs and what that would bring.
Yeah, I think we
Does
gave that direction.
Does that feel pretty good with him?
Yeah, I don't know that it needs to be in the motion. We've given that direction.
Thank you, Councilman.
Are you clear, Barry? Yeah. Okay. I have a motion. Did I get a second?
You got it.
Okay.
Ward, aye.
Cliff, eye.
Granger, aye.
Bellis and I.
Turek, aye.
All right, then we'll move also on to 9A, consideration to approve the resolution adopting the
that-
impact fee.
Yeah, Mayor, move that we table 9A also until our next regular scheduled meeting.
Second?
Motion and second.
Turek, aye.
Bellis and I.
Granger, aye.
Cliff, eye.
Ward, aye.
All right, those are tabled. Thank you. Item 10, Public Works, discussion and review of the Main Street project. Mike Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to give council kind of a brief update where we're at on the Parkway, Main Street project. It actually got put in your packet late this afternoon, so hopefully you were able to find those.
So this is just the engineer's estimate. When is it going to be ready to go out to bid?
Let me get this pulled up real quick. Okay, so we're going to advertise bid. See if I can remember the dates. We're going to open bids or award bids on your December meeting. I believe it's the 14th. 10th. Yeah, December 10th. So right now we're at 90% design on the project. Right here, we've got the road cross sections. We're really dialing it in. We're getting really, really close on it. I just wanted to bring a few of these to you so you could see the actual cross-section of the road through the different segment areas. Also the power. We ended up pulling lighting out of the medians. It was creating a problem for us, having to put big poles in the medians to bring them up out of where any water would be, and which in turn puts them higher. So
That's
looked a
fine.
little bit odd, so we just moved the lighting out of the center medians. We got the decorative lighting out over on the shoulders of the road. And in that, scroll down here, you can see in the little kind of star areas, that's actually the light poles. And on going up the road, and then
Is that gonna be directional lighting so it casts light into the roadway so much as,
well,
so we're not impacting?
it'll be, it
Residents.
won't, yes, it will be. It'll have an arm that brings it out into the road, but it'll also be shaded to keep the light down, so we're not putting light out. A lot like the telegraph lighting is.
I just wondering, I don't know how those bubbles lay out compared to folks' homes, citizens' homes. But sometimes you get a street light there that suddenly comes through your bedroom window.
Right.
Not very fun.
There is some street lighting up the road now. That'll be removed. It's on some of the big, larger poles.
Usually on your corner.
These will be a lot lower poles, so a lot lower to the ground. More, I think we're going for more ambient lighting.
I agree with you, Councilman Turek. I was blessed with one of those opportunities. And it is very unique to have that light just so constant inside your windows. Thank you.
I figured somebody like you'd have a BB gun that took care of that.
I have
No.
3 street lights that light the inside of my
I need
house
the fifth.
at night. I don't even need to turn lights on at nighttime.
I have one of those myself.
The Parks Department has done the landscape design on here. I think they've done a beautiful job. They've spent a lot of time working on it, trying to come up with the right type of trees and shrubs in this. So you can also go through the plans, look and see where we've got the shrubs, the trees throughout the project. Again, I'm just really excited about this project. I really want to see this built just because it's going to be a one-of-a-kind road that everything that we've incorporated into this. And it's been a very big project. We meet weekly with the engineers on this, and there's,
I'm glad to see that you're still as excited about it as you have.
I am, I'm very
Yeah.
excited about it. We're pre-qualifying the contractors on this because it is a very complicated project with the utilities that have to be moved, lowered, and installed on this project. So we send out a request for proposals. Those are due on this Friday. And then we'll go through the pre-qualifying. There's a list of points that they'll get for different criteria in their proposals they give to us. We've got some excellent contractors that are going to be putting proposals in. We had a not a pre-bid meeting, but a pre-qualifying meeting. We had 6 contractors come to that meeting. It's mandatory, but very, very good contractors, so very excited about the project.
One thing that I am very appreciative on this is setting some standards and options for our future roadways. We have had so many roadways of recent, council meetings. We've talked about Green Springs as of yesterday. We've talked about some issues down in the fields where we connect into some industrial and commercial. I'm hoping this continues to be a standard of looking at ways to definitely provide for the needs of our transportation, but buffering and putting in these traffic and calming measures to make sure that citizens can interact in a safe way within their communities. So this is the part that really excites me the most, is having the best possible standard for infusing both the needs of transportation and communities to interact. And I'm hoping for this to be just a great resolution to both as our growth and our needs within it. We've had flooding in this area. I'd like to see some relief to our citizens there. And this looks like some really unique design opportunities and concepts.
Well, and because it's Main Street,
Exactly.
it begins to define our city.
Right.
And I'm excited that we want something beautiful defining our city on our Main Street.
So, I don't know if council has any questions about the project that I might be able to answer.
Well, right now at a 90%, we're just hoping to get this out towards bid time, correct?
Yes. So what we're anticipating is in this project, we are in such a time crunch. We're a 6-month construction project. Our deadline is July 1st. we can have early monsoons in June. What we've done on this project, we put some very heavily penalties on not being completed. So we're $2,000 a day penalty for not being complete, substantial completion by the July 1. But what we've also done is we put an incentive in. They can get a $2,000 a day incentive up to 15 days for an early completion on the project.
Wow.
So what we're anticipating is the contractor, you award the bid, they have a 30-day start time before they have to start the project after we award. What we're anticipating is it'll probably be about a 10-day window where they have to get all their bonds and insurance information into us before they can actually start. I think what we'll probably see is the contractor will roll in here very quickly and get started on this very quickly. That incentive is a big deal for a contractor to get actually paid to complete early. So
I'm assuming that there's a way that we notify which sections of the people living are going to be impacted so they know where to drive differently and that we're going to let them know in detail.
unfortunately, the project, it's going to be, the whole road's going to be tore up. But as part of the contract documents, the road has to stay open for the citizens that live there.
Somewhere, yeah.
Traffic has to be able to move through there while the project is being built.
So but it'll be blocked for
There-
other traffic, right?
Well, it will be open for traffic, even going all the way through, but I don't think we'll see, people will not use it if they don't have to use it. We'll allow certain closures between blocks when we have to close it, just because of the type of construction they're doing. We're laying sewer on through under the interchange, and so we'll actually have to close that because they can't dig it and flag it underneath the interchange while we're laying sewer up there.
Okay.
So there'll be minimal closures, and they're all pre-approved. They'll have to be approved by us before they can do a closure. And it'll be only block by block. They can't close the whole road.
So I
Okay,
will post that information somewhere, let
We
people
will.
know where they can find that
Yes.
information.
Yeah, the public involvement during construction on this is going to be very big. We will get a website set up to where we can post on this website and keep updates going of what is planned to be done on it.
It'd be nice, especially in this block by block thing, if we're putting hangers on the doors,
Right.
because not all people go to the website to see what's gonna happen tomorrow. And so if it's something
And-
that's gonna impact them dramatically like that, they need to be notified.
When we did our in-town water project, it was similar, not quite as impactful, but we were having to close blocks and put people out of water. And we went door to door and told them, okay, you'll be out of water this date. You know, this is when we're planning on doing these things. So, you know, we're going to work very hard on keeping the public involvement through this project.
Thank
And
you.
I appreciate the helicopters you've arranged so we can get people to work if they're
Sure.
blocked.
The engineer's estimate, that's going to have to go up.
Well, thank you, Senator. I appreciate your report.
So the estimate you got, I got that to Denise and she put it in and I was reviewing it and there was a major flaw in that. In the sewer line that's there, they had $45 a foot, so I guess we're only doing 1 foot of sewer line. So it went from $45 to $146,000.
Small
Okay.
change. Right? That's understandable.
We like it the other way around.
Yeah, I do too.
Talk about cost efficiency. right
So,
there.
you know, you've got the estimate in your packet. It's just that one item we'd have to change to the 146, and I can get that to Denise and she can update that for you with the new numbers.
Well, hopefully our engineer's estimate becomes the high bid, not the low bid.
Oh, I hope so, because Sunrise really probably doesn't want to become a contractor.
Yeah, if you've got 6 possibles, yeah, hoping it's competitive.
Well, thank you, Mike. Any questions for additional?
Yeah, just one. So I noticed all of these are marked for review only. Are you planning on putting these up on your website, your project website?
We will when we get them to the point where we're ready to advertise with it. I don't want to get them out, and especially we met with the contractors that were doing the pre-qualifying. They don't even have plans because I don't want it to get out to where a contractor is going to use this to try to start the bidding right now, try to get an early start on putting his bid together, because this will change. Yeah. And I don't like getting it out advertised or to the public right now because things still are changing on this. Until we get it to the point where we're comfortable and it's not going to change, then we will. And we'll advertise it, get it to the contractor, and then we'll get it on our
So you've
website.
had some, just different little shots. I don't know that you necessarily need to have the entire plans there, but just maybe some screen captures of some of these.
Yeah, we could
changes.
possibly put on, probably the landscape is probably the best,
The landscape, maybe the
and
lighting.
maybe the cross
Just
section.
some of those things so people kind of know that things are still.
Yeah, we could do that. We could put the landscaping in because it doesn't show all the utilities and grade and.
Well, I'm just really proud of your
Yeah.
website that you're putting projects out there, but I think the more we can keep things updating and people can be rewarded with new information when they go there.
Right.
So I really do appreciate the effort.
Yeah, I think we could put like these pages here of the landscaping on because there's nothing that's.
So Mike, I guess, because it's prior to bid, typically engineers' estimates aren't.
We do not want that estimate out. That's why I'm not actually showing it here.
That's-
I mean.
Okay, delete.
What's wrong too?
Well, it's wrong. It's just that
Oh, it's on our website. Oh,
So Mike, if you do load any of that stuff up ahead of time, as long as you just mark it, these are preliminary
Draft,
draft,
right.
not to be relied on for bid, something like that.
when you pull up the link on the website for the documents. for us.
The only thing on there, Drew, I'm sorry, not Drew, forgive me, Mike. Looking at the concepts between Telegraph Street and First North and how that interacts with the existing meeting house there, how that'll impact the parking.
One thing in our on our specs on this is that they have to keep that open on Sundays, make sure that all of that is open on Sundays so that people can park, walk across the street, get to church during
So the
construction.
neighboring,
The neighboring parking lot is going to be, that will be accessible on Sundays for going to church.
I know we were a discussion of a possibility of a crosswalk that's more feasible and close to that. We'd
Right.
rather just
So
continue
there
that.
is a crosswalk.
Because I'm looking
I
at
believe-
First North and I don't see.
Yeah, the crosswalk's not going to be a stamped colored. It's going to be a painted crosswalk
So
for the
I know,
church.
and so if it's, that will happen, and I just didn't see it called out. I know it's not stamped.
Yeah, I think
I
that
saw
right
a
there
line
is
going
the,
underneath.
that's the ramp coming up in, I believe, but we have made provisions for the church.
Okay.
Yeah, that was,
So if they go through there, they're going to be crossing through the middle of those trees that are in a,
yeah. This,
visually, I like it, but from a safety standpoint, I'm not sure if we should have people coming out from behind trees in the middle of the road.
we've made provisions for the crossing there.
Okay.
One of the PowerPoint.
And I was just trying to read for it in the call outs and I didn't see it.
That's probably the crossings right there.
Okay.
The full set of plans has all that on it, so.
Okay. That's just one thing just going forward. As it exists within the community, just make sure the crosswalk is available there. Thank you so much. It looks like a lot of work. Well, we're at 90%. And I would love to have this put in before we put in, a monsoon. I know this year was a unique thing that we didn't have
Very
monsoons.
unique.
My goodness, right? You guys got mad at the rain clouds and then walked away. But, I would.
They presented early on in the spring.
They did. It was a
Made
unique
construction kind of
year of
difficult.
our moisture.
Well, it's because we built the basins. If you build it, they will come. No.
Either that or some kind of a mad scheme to ideally grow cheat grass and then dry it out for the year.
Yeah.
There was so much cheat grass this year. It's crazy.
Well,
You're more than welcome if you want to come down to the office and look at the full set of plans that we have right now, the 90%.
thank you for that invitation. I might take you up on that one.
So as far as what would I see in those that's not included in what I've got here?
Well, it shows all of the water, sewer, irrigation, power, and all the underground, all the design on the roadway, because this is very tricky, taking this road up through with the different elevations going up that road and creating a road with a depressed center in it and trying to get it in. And so our street elevations change from a 2% slope on this side to 0.2% on this side, and then it changes to here and a 0.5 here as we go up the road. So
Fun.
it's
Okay.
very technical job, and I got to really hand it to Sunrise Engineering. They've done a very good job on a very tight schedule to get this built. And they pretty much had 3 engineers working on this, so.
I would like to add a second to that partnership. I think Sunrise Engineers done a spot on amazing job with everything and adjusting to the council needs. They have been definitely a valuable tool in a lot of our decision making. So much appreciation for their efforts.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thanks.
Anything to report from your committees?
On the Active Transportation Committee, I think we gave them 3,000 last year, and they get a grant match of 7,000. They will need to be put on the agenda to see if we plan for that 3,000 again this year, or if we can. They're also wondering if there's any interest on the council with the mayor and Jeff and whomever to go on a bike ride to celebrate Bike Week, and they'd invite you to do that.
Where are they starting? You know?
Well, they haven't decided all that yet. They just want to know if there's even any interest.
Hey, if you need someone on a bike,
I think we're talking about maybe those electrical bikes, so boys could do it.
No,
Hey, so those are pretty fun.
that's fake.
Yeah, I'd be interested if you're, let me know.
Yeah,
when.
let's find out.
Why not?
See if I can do it.
Mayor Pike and I are going from Sun River to Hurricane, as far as we can go on a trail, as many as we can get. We may end up going up over 7 and all that, but we're going to do that.
On the trail.
On the trail, all the way through the Virgin, as far as we can go. Then we'll go
Well, if you
probably
can
up
just use
Washington Dam
Councilman-
Road, and then,
Super.
yeah. He has an electric one and I don't.
You
You
can
might
use
wanna rent
Councilman
one.
Belliston's bikes. His are pretty unique.
A little loud on the trail.
You know, I mean, we can modify for the mayor, right?
So we should coordinate that.
That would be kind of
Yeah, that'd
fun,
be fun.
even if you did it in legs or something like that. It'd be a cool thing to do as a council. Mayor, one thing to report back from mine is we've talked a little bit about the concept of the Washington City Events Committee, and I passed out a packet to each one of the council members to review based off of our conversation of the last workshop. I would love if the city council could look over this. I've incorporated all that was brought up, and if there's anything else that we could look into or discuss, I would love to have some feedback and try to move this forward in our next workshop to something that we adopt and are okay doing. The main concepts that I'm looking into that I appreciate is Councilwoman Granger brought up the concept of a 3-year term service, where a person is learning 1 year, leading out the 2nd year, and transitioning the 3rd year with somebody else. I think it'd be important for us to be okay with some of these things as a council, because Mayor and I will be serving actively on this going forward with the intent of setting up chairs for next year and setting up direction. And so it would be important for us to move forward on this soon so that we could, feel confident as a council what we're supporting. I think our city has grown to a point that we need to have that type of structure in place. And we need to address both the heritage and the liability and the concepts of continuity. And this just kind of gives a lot of ideas for us to look at.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more report, if I may. The Finance Committee, you're good. Just anticipating that the economy is maybe getting a little bit soft, has been converting some of its funds into a more secure bond structure from the more speculative structure that they had. So that the yield may not be quite as high, but it may be much more secure. So that's a direction that we've taken some of those funds.
Appreciate all your time and effort on that.
Oh my
on that.
So you would
That's
have this committee, and then from that committee, these chairs
good.
are chosen by the committee.
Well, I'll mention one thing from my committee. The Community Action Committee did the public forum for the candidates. That was, I think we have 3 participants here tonight. That was very well done. And our attendance, I hate to compare ourselves to others, but we had twice the attendance that the other city I went to had. And it was a really
Nice.
good. So
Great.
appreciated the community center setting up for that, and it was a good location. It was well attended and very well done. I also attended the chamber does some tax updates on some of that coming through. Very interesting. I think your state legislator is hearing what we're saying with some of the recommendations on their new tax structure. They released some information there. Got a presentation from local watchdog group, and they were pretty happy. Now that is just the recommendation that comes out of that committee going to them, but it might turn out to be a good thing. It was kind of rough going for a while.
So where you're over at the chamber, have they figured somebody out for Pam's position or?
I haven't. The last I talked to anybody about that, they were still getting applications and phone calls. And
Really?
yeah, Pam was at the last meeting I went to. So
She's not actually stepping down for a few months.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I think they've got a little bit of time.
Right. You'll have to tell her thank you for her service because she's done a great job with the chamber.
Yeah, she's not moving.
No, I thought I heard she was. Is she not?
She was going to go to Dallas.
That's-
Now she's not.
Did she
Maybe she
rescind her?
doesn't want to go.
I don't know what happened. I was just visiting with her, and she said she wasn't going to Dallas. So now she's looking at Arkansas or something like that.
She did say that she moves about every 5 years.
Yeah.
And because she gets stir crazy, so she wants to go somewhere else. And so
Yeah.
I anticipate she'll still go.
Mayor, can I just point of personal privilege?
Absolutely.
November the 1st from 7 in the evening to 8:30, I'm having a reception for an art show that I've got outside of the Sears Gallery with about 20 different pieces, all about Aspen,
November 1st?
November 1st.
Where at?
At the Eccles, just outside of the Sears Gallery right there,
Oh, okay.
out in the foyer.
Congratulations.
Love to have somebody show up.
What are you saying?
Okay.
You say the date again.
November 1st.
November 1st from 7 till 8 p.m.
I'm going to call it art show. Should I just call it
There you
art?
go,
Art
Colleen's
exhibit.
Art Show.
That was
Right.
Eccles.
Just outside the Eccles Auditorium, between that and the Sears Gallery, it's just out in that foyer area.
I'm thinking.
On
it's
DSU
DSU
campus, right? You're talking about DSU
Yeah,
campus?
I
Yeah.
think Dixie State
Okay.
University. It's the building that's right in the corner.
Yeah.
By the cemetery.
From 7 to 8,
7 to 8:30.
November 1st.
There are paintings. Sleep, a couple of boards.
I'll make it.
Okay, thank you. Just FYI, the federal government under the Trump administration has basically told FERC to take a flying leap on the Lake Powell pipeline, and they're going to go through NEPA, which will streamline the process.
For the environmental.
But, yeah,
So
so we're pretty,
limited to 12 months.
right. Mhm. So we're thinking we'll have an outline and a plan sometime this next year. This
Part
time.
of that is they're taking the power generation
Right.
out of the pipeline.
Right.
Is that correct?
Mhm.
Well, I thought that was some of their cost payback was in the power generation on that, but
Well, I don't know if they're doing all of them. I think they were planning 4 or 5,
They're
and they
taking
were
a couple
going
of
to,
reservoirs out. But
yeah, and a couple of
That was
reservoirs.
part of the power, so that's how they're getting out of the FERC process.
Yeah.
They're getting out of the energy generation process.
what do we do to the
I
reservoirs?
was wondering, 'cause last time they were moving like 4.
That's why I was gone yesterday.
Mayor, if there's nothing else, I have nothing else to say.
Okay.
I do. It seems that the mayor's team always do really well in his own tournament.
We had a great time.
Almost like he stacks the deck.
But-
He does stack the deck.
The team that won was not my team.
How about
We won it one year. I got so much flack. I decided I better probably not win my own tournament anymore. So with that little thought in mind, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.